Hello, fellow modelers. Bruce here. A few videos ago, I was sharing with you a purchase I made of a Tyco Mantua Little 6 that was being sold for parts or repair. And when I looked through the box, we found out that a lot of stuff was there, but it was missing 2 connecting rods and some various bolts and screws. So we left it that I would look on eBay for the parts, and maybe you'd see me build this critter at some point down the road. So indeed, I did start looking on eBay, and I started looking just for parts and connecting rods. I did find a nice assortment of screws for the smaller Tyco Mantua locomotives, but I didn't buy it. The price wasn't too bad. I think it was about $15 for quite a few screws and bolts, but plus shipping. But then I didn't see anything as far as the connecting rods were concerned. There was a complete Little 6, totally assembled and supposedly in running order, that was up for about $35, which I considered. Then I saw this pop up, and it was up for bid. It didn't have a buy now price. Let me get this open a minute. So I put a bid in. I figured, what the heck? It had more than what I needed. As a matter of fact, it looked like it might be a complete kit. But I think the bid at the time was only about $21. So I put a bid in, and lo and behold, I ended up being the high bidder at about $22 and change. And with the shipping came to under $31. So let's see if we have everything we need here to finish one of these guys up. Let's see what we have here. Oh, it's a base plate, and feels like the motor. Indeed it is. Here's the boiler and cab casting. Let's see. Chassis. Oh, there's quite a bit of flash on this one. Let's see what else we got here. I'm hoping these are the connecting rods. We will see. I thought I saw them in the photograph. No, this is the electrical pickup. And that's the cylinder. What do we got here? Okay. I was starting to worry here just a bit. If there's anything else. Alright, let's see. I don't know if you remember this, but when I bought this parts one, there were 4 drive wheels included for a 060, and lo and behold, we once again do have 4. This one here is obviously different than the others, so we do have some extra parts. And in here are connecting rods and screws. So it looks to me like we have the makings for one of the little 6s and parts left over. So let's just compare these 2 castings. This was the older one that I had that was missing the connecting rods, and this is the new one. Now you can see severe flash here in the front of the cab. You can see quite a bit of flash here in the windows. The rear windows on this one totally closed. So yeah, it would take a lot more cleanup on what I'll call the new cab than if I use the old cab. So yep, I think it'll be putting it together using parts from one and parts from the other, and as I said, we will end up with a lot of parts left over. So yeah, let's just check out this motor real quick, and then we will put this away for now, since I'm in the middle of another project, and you will see it again when I start working on it. Let's just see if this motor works. It does, needs a little bit of cleanup, but it's working. So yeah, holy mackerel, is that commutator black. Yep, a cleanup, so we're going to have an extra motor out of it, and overall we'll end up with one running little 6 and an extra motor, extra chassis, extra boiler assembly. Be pretty cool. Alrighty, you'll see this one again. Alrighty, continuing on in comparing the various parts from the original purchase, which was for parts or repair type of purchase, and the pretty much complete, I think it is complete kit. We already compared the actual locomotive casting for both, and very, very easy to see that the one from the first purchase, the parts kit, does not have anywhere near the amount of flash that you can see here along the top of the cab. The back windows are solid. A lot of flash work on this one. So clearly we said we're going to use the casting from the first purchase. And I think it's probably true that it wasn't a absolutely clean casting from the beginning. If you remember, this kit was something that somebody started to assemble, as proven by these wheel sets connected by the connecting rods, but hadn't finished. So there's a good chance that whoever owned this kit initially took his or her file and did the cleanup work on this casting, and we appreciate it. So we'll use that, and this goes back in the box. Looking at the chassis castings, again, this is the original purchase, and this is the other one. Again, a lot more flash available. Let's turn them both the same direction. a lot more flash available here. If you look here where the coupler box goes, you see a lot of flash there. There's flash on the front steps that you should be able to see and so forth. So once again, probably because the original owner had cleaned it up, we'll go with the chassis from the parts kit. The next casting would be the cylinder casting, and this is the original from the parts box, and this is the one from the new kit. And again, this one is by far cleaner, and we'll go with that. There's a lot of flash. I think you can see it along in here. A lot of flash along the outside here. So yeah. And then finally, the only other of the die cast parts is the base plate. And this is the base plate from the parts purchase, and this is the base plate from the complete kit. There's actually some slight differences. Oh, nope, let me see. Yeah, there's actually some slight differences on these two. There's actually a different part number on each of them. One is Mantua 3976, and the other one is Mantua 3993. They are about in the same state as far as flash is concerned. This one had not been cleaned up like the other parts. But since this came with this kit, I'm going to go with that base plate and just clean it up. So hopefully that will match up good. We'll see. I'll clean it up and paint it, and paint the other one too. Now when it comes to the rest, the wheel sets, the drive rods and everything else, I'm going to go with the new kit. So it's going to be kind of a, all the major castings come from the old purchase, and all the smaller parts and the wheel sets come from this. I'm starting to accumulate a lot of extra parts. And at some point I should be able to actually make up some kind of Franken-loco from all the extra parts that I have, but we'll wait and see how that goes. As far as the two motors are concerned, they're both in pretty good shape. However, I'm going to go, since I'm using all the drive rods and everything from the newer kit, the unassembled kit, I'm going to go with the motor from that one as well. So that's kind of where it is. The next step is going to be to give everything a coating of spray paint, and then I'll come back and we'll take it from there. Okay, it's time for another update. I've painted all of the die-cast parts with flat black from a rattle can, and then I touched up any spots that were missed or any spots that were still showing some bare metal through it with a brush using the Microlux engine black paint, and I find that flat blacks really blend together well from different manufacturers, and you really don't notice any difference. So, and I've lettered this tank engine for the Bangor Slate Company that resided on my original Jersey Highlands Railroad back in New Jersey, and will have a presence once again when I build my new layout here. And if you've seen my other video, my recent video, you know that I've started on the bench work on that now. What I will do is put some still pictures into this video, giving you an idea of what the Bangor Slate section of the quarry branch look like. And I think I'll put also a couple links into the description of this video. One of the links will once again show how I do the dry transfer lettering very easily using graph paper that you produce yourself. And the other link will be for a video I had about 6-7 years ago showing off the quarry branch on the old Jersey Highlands. So I think I'll put both of those links in there. The other thing I've done since we talked last was I've cleaned up the wheel sets with a wire brush and my Dremel tool, and came across the first, I guess, of the issues with the parts that I have here. All of the bushings, all of the brass bushings that I have are solid and don't have a hole in the middle. And if you look down into the slots where they're supposed to go, right here, here, and here, you see little prongs sticking up. So these are supposed to have holes drilled through them. And then when you put them into the slot, they go right into the pins that are in there, go right into those holes and keep these centered and in place. So I have two options. One option is to take a file and file those prongs off, or the other option is to try to drill a hole in each of the bushings, or bearings I should say. I think I'm going to try to drill the holes, and if that turns out to be too much of a challenge, then I'll take the other route and file those off and maybe just put a drop of super glue to hold them centered and in place. So yeah, when I come back, I'll let you know whether I'm successful or not. The other thing is, and you always have to worry about this when you are assembling a locomotive or taking one apart for repair, is that on these types of locomotives, one wheel on each axle is insulated and the other one isn't. And in this case, with this 060, and on most of the Tyco Mantuas, the insulated wheels go on the left side of the locomotive as if you were sitting in the cab. So if this is the chassis, then the insulated wheels would come on towards me. And usually you can see easily which wheel is insulated by looking at the face, and in this case I see a ring that is between the plastic spokes and the metal wheel, and that's an insulator. But if you really want to double check that your eyesight's good and you have that all figured out, just put your multimeter into continuity testing, and then if it has a complete circuit, you hear that buzz. So if you take each of these, and I look and which one is insulated to my belief and which one isn't. I believe the insulated one is towards me, so if I put one of these probes on the axle and the other on the wheel, there's no beep because that's the insulated one, and if you go to the other wheel, you get a beep. So if you're not really sure which wheel is insulated, you can use your multimeter to double check. Again, it looks to me like the one closest to me is the insulated one, and that one's not. So multimeter does come in handy on these types of builds, so always good to have one. They're not expensive at all. Mine dates back to the Radio Shack days, but there's plenty of companies offering them now. So that's it for this update. I'm going to try to drill those holes in those bearings, and then I'll come back with the assembly. Talk to you soon. All right, time for another update. Here I am just test running everything on the assembly to see how it runs. I've got the connecting rods and the main rod and the crosshead guides and the crossheads all assembled on the left side of the locomotive. Now I still have to do the right side, but I'm just testing it in a little bit here. And let's see, we just get it to run in reverse real quick. So overall, so far so good. Might have to adjust a little bit the engagement of the worm gear with the drive gear. But it's working so far so good. Now, to give you an idea of what we had to do to get to this point real quick, because I've done it in more detail on some of my other videos on assembling steam locomotives from kit form. All of the rods, the connecting rods and the main rod, are stampings. And when you have a stamping, the backside is usually got some burrs and so forth on it. Let me just back out a minute so you can see what I'm doing here without me going off the screen. And the easiest way to get those burrs off, unless they're really substantial, if they're substantial, lightly run a file over them. But if it's just minor burrs like on this one, you just lay it on a piece of 600 grit and get your fingers on it and run it back and forth, and that it pretty much immediately takes off the burrs. So that's what I did on all of the connecting rods and the main rod. The next thing you have to do after you install those is just to give it a test run to make sure nothing is binding, and then you can start working on the valve gear. So, in assembling these, you have the crosshead guides, which are, looks like this. All right. And the crosshead assembly, and the crosshead assembly is connected to the main rod with a rivet. Now there's only, on this kit, only 2 rivets you have to deal with, and both of them are to connect the main rod to the crosshead assembly. And the way you do that is to find yourself a little metal block or a piece of metal that gives you something to tap against when you're going to try to flatten the rivet. So to give you an idea of the size of these rivets, this is always a exercise in frustration because they're so small and have the ability to flip off of your tweezers. There's one of the rivets. And let's see, what can I put in there to give you an idea of how small it is. Here's my tweezers. You can see how small it is. And the what you do is you insert it through the, in this case, plastic or Delrin crosshead assembly. Get this out of the way so I don't lose it. And there's the head of the rivet, and then you turn it over onto this metal and you insert the main rod over the end of the rivet on this side, making sure that now this is the back side of the crossheads, this is the back side of the main rod. And you can use a screwdriver if you want. You can just take a screwdriver, put it on the head, flat blade, tap it down, and that'll flatten out the rivet. I happen to have a rivet tool from a Bowser kit, and you just put it over the rivet, holding it down, and take your hammer. It doesn't have to be a small hammer like this, and you just give it a couple taps to flatten it out. And you keep testing it to make sure that you have an up and down movement, but that it's secure. And that's the only rivet you have to deal with. On some of the larger Mantua and Tyco kits, you have to deal with quite a few rivets on the valve gear assembly. But here it's only the one, and we can all kind of work our way through just using one rivet, as long as it doesn't go flipping off of your tweezers and get lost forever. Most of the kits do have a couple of spare rivets because they know the tendency for that to actually happen. So with that done, I will now assemble the crosshead assembly and get it into the cylinder casting, connect it here to the center blind driver, and give it a test run, and then all the running gear will be done. So let me do that, and then I'll get back to you. Okay, I think we're pretty much done with the build on the Mantua Little 6. It's electrically is working. It's just sounds a bit like a coffee grinder at the moment. Oh, would have been good if I had put it in forward first. Let me get this back on. And let's try that again. So when I was running this before I put the boiler on, the locomotive frame, I didn't hear that grounding sound. So I'm going to take this apart later and do a little more work on it to see what's what, and see if I can quiet that down a bit. But other than that, trying to do some low speed there. Still sounds like a coffee grinder. But there we are for now, and I think besides tweaking this one a bit, the only other thing I am going to do besides work on the layout is finish up the Tyco Prairie that I was working on. While I was spray painting this unit, I was also spray painting any of the die-cast parts for that. So I still have to do that. This does not have working headlights or anything, so it's electrically pretty simple. And that's it for now. So as always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. And if you haven't done it already, please subscribe to my channel and continue to look for updates. Talk to you soon.